When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. It wasn't a happy smile, not the kind that reaches your eyes. It was a small, quiet thing, a shield. It was the only thing I could do to stop my heart from breaking open right there in her spotless, modern kitchen. Her words were calm. They were not angry. They were final, like a judge reading a sentence. "Mom, we think it's time for you to have your own space again. It would be better for everyone." Everyone. I let that word hang in the air between us. I looked at her face, so young, so sure. I looked past her at the rain tracing paths down the window. It looked the way my tears wanted to feel, cold and free. But I am a mother, a grandmother. I have learned that some storms you must face with silence. So I smiled that thin, fragile smile. I nodded slowly. And in that moment, my whole life with them seemed to flash before my eyes, not as a movie, but as a feeling, a warmth that was now cooling, like a cup of tea left forgotten on a table. I thought of my son, David, my gentle boy. Where was he in this? Was this his thought too? Was I a burden he was too kind to name? The smile stayed on my lips. It was my anchor. It held me together as the world I knew, the home I had helped build, began to quietly, politely fall apart. This was not the story I thought I would be living. Not at my age, not after all I had given up. My name is Lena. For 58 years, that has been my name. For 35 of those years, I was Mrs. Lena Tan, wife to Robert. For 32 of them, I was mum to David, and for the last 5, I have been Popo to little Lily. But in that kitchen, I didn't know who I was anymore. It wasn't always like this. Let me take you back. Let me paint you a picture of before. Our family home was not big. It was a 3-room flat filled with the smell of Robert's newspapers and my cooking. There was always noise, the sound of David's football hitting the wall, the radio playing old songs, the hum of our old refrigerator. It was a lived-in home, a loved-in home. Robert was a quiet man, a mechanic. His hands were always stained with a little grease, no matter how hard he scrubbed. He used to say his hands were a map of his work. I loved those hands. They were strong and kind. They built this family with those hands. And David? David was our miracle. He had his father's calm eyes and, I always thought, a little of my hopeful heart. He was a good boy. He liked to read, and he always held my hand when we crossed the street, even when he was a teenager. I remember so clearly the day he left for university. I stood at the gate and waved until his bus disappeared. Robert put his arm around me, his strong, steady arm, and said, "David, we'll come back, Lena. He will always come back." But Robert is gone now. A sudden, quiet heart attack 5 years ago. The flat became too big, too quiet, too full of memories. Every corner whispered his name. The silence was a heavy blanket. It was David's idea for me to move in with them. He and his wife, Sarah, had just bought a new apartment. It was bright and modern. They had a room for me. "It will be a fresh start, Mom," he said with his voice so full of love. "We can help with Lily. You won't be alone." Sarah was polite. She was always polite. She was a city girl, smart and beautiful, with a career at a big company. She liked things a certain way. Neat. Ordered. I saw the way she looked at my old wooden furniture, my porcelain figurines. They didn't fit her world of clean lines and white walls. But I wanted to try. For David. For little Lily. I sold the old flat. The money wasn't much, but I put it all into a fixed deposit. For my future, I thought. For a rainy day. I packed my life into 50 boxes. I brought with me only my clothes, my photo albums, and a small jade bracelet my mother gave me. I left the rest behind. I walked into their beautiful new home, ready to be a new version of Lena, ready to be helpful, to be grateful.
In the beginning, it was sweet. Lily was just a baby. I would spend hours with her singing the same lullabies I sang to David. I cooked our family recipes. I kept the house clean while they were at work. I felt useful. I felt like I was part of something again. David was happy. He would come home from work and give me a hug. "The house smells like my childhood, Mom," he'd say. And that made everything worth it. But slowly, so slowly, I almost didn't notice, things began to change. The warmth started to cool. The space I occupied in their beautiful home began to feel less like a room and more like a corner I was borrowing. And I, Lena, who had once run a whole household, began to feel like I was slowly, gently fading away. The first sign was the kitchen. It was my sanctuary, the heart of any home, my mother used to say. I loved making their dinners. I made David's favorite curry, the way I always had. I made soups and stews that simmered for hours, filling the air with a rich, comforting smell. One evening, Sarah came home early. She walked into the kitchen and stopped. She smiled her polite smile. "Lena, that smells very strong," she said. "It's just the spices for the curry," I said, wiping my hands on my apron. "I see," she said. She opened the window wide, even though it was a chilly evening. "You know, we're trying to eat more lightly, Mom. More salads, steamed fish. It's better for our health and for the new kitchen vents. The grease is not good for them." I looked at my pot of curry. It was a recipe passed down from my own mother. It was made with love. "Of course, Sarah," I said softly. "I understand." The next day, a new steamer arrived. It was shiny and silver and made very little noise. My big, heavy pots were moved to the highest shelf where I could barely reach them. So, I learned to steam fish. I made bland chicken breast. The air in the apartment lost its warm, spicy smell. It started to smell of lemons and cleaning fluid. Then it was the way I looked after Lily. I loved that little girl with every piece of my heart. When she started to talk, her first word was "Popo," not Mama, Popo. I saw the flicker in Sarah's eyes, a small, quick flash of something that wasn't happiness. I taught Lily nursery rhymes in my own language. I let her play with dough on the kitchen floor. I believed a little mess was a sign of a happy child. One afternoon, Lily and I were painting. She was 3 years old, her small face serious with concentration. A drop of red paint fell on her white t-shirt. I laughed. "It's okay, little flower," I said. "Popo will wash it. It's just a little color." But when Sarah came home, she saw the stain. Her face tightened. She said, "Lena, this is a brand new shirt and she has music class later. She can't go like this." "It's just a shirt, Sarah," I said. "Children get dirty." "That's not the point," she replied, her voice a little sharper. "The point is routine. The point is presentation. She needs to learn these things." She took Lily's hand. "Come on, sweetie, let's get you changed. We don't have time for painting now." She didn't look at me as she led Lily away. I stood there, surrounded by our bright, happy paintings, feeling like I had done something very wrong. The biggest change was in David. My gentle boy was becoming a stranger. He was so tired all the time. Work was demanding. When he came home, he would go straight to his laptop. The hugs became less frequent. Our talks became shorter. He was caught in the middle, I could see. He loved me, but he loved his wife too. He wanted peace. One Saturday, we were all having breakfast. I had made kaya toast, just like I used to for David when he was a boy. He took a bite and smiled. A real, genuine smile. "This is wonderful, Mom. Takes me back."
Sarah put down her phone. "David, remember we have that property viewing at 10 for the new condo development?" "Ah, right," David said, the smile fading from his face. "New condo?" I asked, sipping my tea. "Yes," Sarah said, her voice bright. "It's a great investment opportunity. The location is perfect. We're thinking of upgrading." "But this apartment is lovely," I said, "and it's so new." "The market is good now," she said, looking directly at David. "If we want to move up, we need to act. We'll need a bigger down payment, of course." There was a silence. David wouldn't meet my eyes. He just nodded, staring into his coffee cup. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. My money. The money from the sale of my flat. It was sitting in the bank. For my rainy day. Was this the rain? The small tensions became a constant low hum in the background of our lives, like a radio tuned to a station you can't quite hear. I tried to make myself smaller, quieter. I stayed in my room more. I stopped offering to cook. I asked for permission before taking Lily to the playground. I was a guest in my son's house, a guest who had overstayed her welcome and didn't know where else to go. One night, I couldn't sleep. I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. I heard David and Sarah talking in low voices in their room. Their door was slightly ajar. "It's not just about the space, David. It's about our future, our family's future. We can't move forward if we're always looking back." "But she's my mother." David's voice was tired, weak. "Where will she go?" "That's not the point. She has her own money. She can get a small place. She'll be fine. It's time for us to live our own lives. Don't you want that?" There was a long pause. "Of course I do," David whispered. I stood in the dark kitchen, the cold water glass in my hand. I felt the truth of her words settled deep inside me. Looking back, I was the past, and they were moving forward. Without me. I went back to my room and looked at the photograph on my bedside table. It was of Robert and me with a young David, all squeezed together on our old sofa, laughing. We looked so happy, so complete. That was the night I knew my smile was coming. I practiced it in the mirror. A small, accepting curve of the lips. It was the only armor I had left. The big argument didn't happen all at once. It happened in layers, like paint peeling off an old wall. It started with a letter, a bank statement, addressed to me. It had come to their address. Sarah brought it to me, her expression unreadable. "Lena, this came for you," she said, handing me the envelope. "Thank you, dear." I was about to put it aside when she spoke again. Her voice was casual, too casual. "If you don't mind me asking, is that the fixed deposit from the sale of your flat?" I felt a prickle on my skin. "Yes," I said simply. "It must be a decent amount. That old flat was in a good location." She paused, choosing her words. "You know, with interest rates so low, money just sitting there, it's actually losing value." I didn't say anything. I just waited. "David and we've found a perfect unit in the new development by the lake. It has a great view. It's an investment that will double in a few years. But the down payment is substantial." She looked at me. Her eyes were clear and direct.
There was no request. It was a statement of fact, an opportunity presented. I thought of Robert. I thought of the years of saving, the sacrifices we made for that flat. It wasn't just money. It was our life. It was my safety net, the last piece of independence I had. "Sarah," I said, my voice trembling slightly, "that money, it's for my old age, for my needs." "What needs, Lena?" she said, a hint of impatience in her voice. "You live with us. We take care of everything. What do you need that money for?" "For when I am no longer welcome here," I thought, but I couldn't say it. "I will think about it," I said, the words feeling like ash in my mouth. She gave a short nod. "Okay, just think about it. It's a much better use of the money than letting it sit and rot." She left the room, and I held the bank statement in my hands. It felt heavy, like a stone. That evening, David tried to talk to me. He came into my room looking nervous. "Mom," he began, "Sarah told me she spoke to you about the new house." "Yes, she did. It's a really good opportunity. The property market, you know how it is. This could set us up for life." "Us?" I asked gently. "Well, all of us. You, me, Sarah, Lily. A bigger place, a better life." "David," I said, my heart aching for him, "this is my security. It's all I have left from my life with your father." His face softened for a moment. "I know, Mom, I know, but you don't need to be secure alone. We are your security. We are your family." He sounded like he was trying to convince himself more than me. A few days later, the tension was a thick fog in the apartment. We were all pretending, smiling tight, brittle smiles, talking about the weather, avoiding the big, heavy thing in the room. The breaking point was a small one, as breaking points often are. It was Lily's 5th birthday. I had knitted her a small pink rabbit. It had long, floppy ears and a little embroidered smile. It wasn't perfect. My hands were not as steady as they used to be, but I made it with every ounce of my love. At her party, surrounded by shiny store-bought gifts from her friends, I gave her my rabbit. Her little face lit up. She hugged it tight. "Popo, I love it. It's so soft." Sarah looked at the rabbit. She saw a loose thread near its ear. Her smile was tight. "That's very handmade, Lena. Thank you." She turned to Lily. "Sweetie, why don't you put it with your other toys? Be careful, it looks delicate." Later, after the party, I was putting away the cake. I heard Lily crying in the living room. I went to see what was wrong. Sarah was holding the pink rabbit. One of its ears was torn, hanging by a few threads. Lily was sobbing. "Mommy, it broke." "Lily, I told you to be careful," Sarah said, her voice stern. "It was poorly made. These things happen with old, handmade stuff. It's not meant to be played with." She said it so matter-of-factly. Old, handmade stuff, not meant to be played with. I felt the words like a physical blow. It wasn't about the rabbit. It was about me. I was old. I was poorly made for their new world. I was not meant to be part of their lives. I didn't say a word. I just turned and walked back to the kitchen. My hands were shaking. I held onto the countertop, the cool, hard marble, and tried to breathe. That night, after Lily was asleep, it happened. I was in the kitchen, getting my glass of water. Sarah came in. She had that look on her face, the look of someone who has made a decision. She didn't say hello. She just started. "Lena, we need to talk." I put my glass down. "Yes, Sarah?" "About the money and about the future." She took a deep breath. "David and I have decided we are putting an offer on the new condo. We need your contribution for the down payment." It wasn't a question. It was a demand. I looked at her. this woman who held my son's heart, my granddaughter's life in her hands. And if I say no? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She shrugged, a small, elegant movement. Then I don't see how we can move forward as a family. We can't afford it on our own. We'll be stuck here. And frankly, Lena, this apartment, it's not big enough for 2 families. 2 families? I repeated, the words hurting. Are we not one family? You know what I mean, she said, her voice hardening. You have your life. We have ours. It's time we separated them, for good. There it was, the final sentence. She looked at me, waiting for my reaction, waiting for tears, for anger, for a scene. And that is when I smiled. I gathered all my strength, all my love for my son, all my memories of Robert, all the pain and the hope, and I let it settle into a calm, quiet acceptance on my face. I smiled. I understand, Sarah, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. You are right. It is time for me to have my own space again. She looked startled, confused by my reaction. She had prepared for a fight, not for surrender. I'm glad you see it that way, she said, flustered. I do. I will start looking for a place tomorrow. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her standing there. I walked to my room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of my bed. The smile slowly melted from my face, and in the quiet dark, with only the photograph of my old family for company, I finally let the silent tears fall.
The next few weeks were a blur of quiet activity. It was like I was moving through a dream. I found a small rental flat. It was in an old building, not like their shiny new one. The walls were a little stained and the floors creaked, but it had a small balcony where I could put some plants. It was mine. I told David my decision the next day. His face crumpled. Mom, no! You don't have to do this. We can talk about it. It's already decided, David, I said, my voice soft but firm. Sarah is right. It is better this way. He looked so lost. My little boy. But where will you go? Do you need money? I have my money, David, I said. The money from the flat. Remember? He flinched. He knew what I meant. He looked down, ashamed. I'm sorry, Mum. I'm so sorry. I reached out and touched his cheek. I know, my boy. I know. Packing my things was much faster this time. I had only accumulated a little in 5 years. It all fit into 10 boxes. The rest belonged to their life, not mine. The day I moved out was a bright, sunny Saturday. It felt wrong for such a sad day to be so beautiful. David helped me carry the boxes to the taxi. He was quiet, his shoulders slumped. Sarah stood by the door, holding Lily's hand. She looked relieved, and maybe just a little guilty. Lily ran up to me and hugged my legs. Popo, where are you going? I'm going to a new house, little flower, I said, kneeling down to her level. My heart was breaking. Will you come back? I looked at her innocent face. I looked at Sarah. I looked at David. I will always be your Popo, I said, avoiding the question. And I will always love you. I hugged her tight, breathing in her little girl's smell one last time. I stood up. David's eyes were wet with tears. He pulled me into a fierce, desperate hug. I love you, Mum, he choked out. I love you too, David. Always. I got into the taxi. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I stared straight ahead as the driver pulled away from the curb, away from my son, away from my granddaughter, away from the life I had tried so hard to belong to. The first month in my new flat was the hardest. The silence was back. But this time, it was different.
It wasn't the silence of missing Robert. It was the silence of being alone. Truly alone. I cried a lot. I felt a regret so deep I thought it would swallow me whole. I regretted selling my old flat. I regretted giving up my independence. I regretted not fighting harder, or maybe fighting differently. But slowly, something began to shift. I bought a small pot of jasmine for my balcony. I went to the market myself, choosing my own vegetables. I cooked my curry, and the strong, spicy smell filled my home. No one opened a window. No one complained. I started to take walks in the nearby park. I met other elderly people there. We began to nod, hello. Then we started to talk. I met Auntie Chen, whose children were in another country. I met Uncle Raju, who had lost his wife the year before. We were a little club of people who had been left behind by life. We started having tea together in the mornings. It wasn't the family I had dreamed of, but it was company. It was connection. I missed Lily with a physical ache. It was a pain in my chest every single day. David called me once a week. His calls were full of updates about work, about the new condo they had finally bought. His voice was always a little strained. We were polite strangers, my son and I. One afternoon, about 3 months after I had moved out, there was a knock on my door. It was a weekday. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door, and there was David, alone. He looked terrible. His eyes were red and he hadn't shaved. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking. "David, what's wrong? Is it Lily? Is she okay?" "Lily's fine," he said. Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He walked into my small living room and looked around. It was simple, but it was clean. It was me. He saw the photograph of him as a boy, now on my mantelpiece. He saw my knitting basket. He saw the small, mended pink rabbit sitting on my sofa. He broke down. Great heaving sobs shook his whole body. I hadn't seen him cry like that since he was a little boy. I went to him and held him, just like I used to. I let him cry. When his sobs subsided, he sank onto my sofa, his head in his hands. "She's gone, Mum," he whispered. "Who's gone?" "Sarah. She left. She took Lily." My heart stopped. "What? Why?" He looked up at me, his face a mask of pain and shame. "The new condo," he said. "It was too much. The mortgage, it was crushing us. We fought about money all the time. She said I was weak. She said I couldn't provide the life she wanted. She met someone else, someone who could." I sat down next to him, stunned. The very thing she had wanted so badly, the money, the status, had been the thing that broke them. "She said I was too much like you," David cried. "Too soft, too content with simple things. She didn't want simple things." I held his hand. I had no words. "I lost everything, Mum," he wept. "My wife, my daughter, my home. And I lost you. I pushed you away for a dream that was never real. I chose her over you. I chose money over family. And for what?" He looked at me, his eyes begging for forgiveness. "I am so sorry, Mum. I'm so sorry. I don't deserve your love." In that moment, I didn't see a failed man. I saw my son, my hurting, lost little boy. All the pain, the loneliness, the regret I had felt, it melted away, replaced by a mother's pure, unconditional love. "David," I said, my voice firm and gentle, "look at me." He looked up. "You are my son. I love you. There is nothing you could ever do that would make me stop loving you. This is your home. You will always have a home with me." He collapsed into my arms again, and we cried together. We cried for all the lost time, for all the misunderstandings, for the pain we had both caused each other. That was the real turning point. Not when I left, but when he came back. David moved in with me for a little while. My small flat was suddenly full of life again. It was crowded and messy and perfect. He was broken, but we began to piece him back together. We talked, really talked, for the first time in years. He told me about the pressure he felt, the man he thought he had to be. I told him about my loneliness, my fear of being a burden. We forgave each other, and more importantly, we forgave ourselves. He found a smaller, affordable apartment nearby. He's fighting for custody of Lily. It is a long process, but he's stronger now. He's himself again, my gentle, kind boy. Every weekend, Lily comes to stay with us. My flat is her second home. She calls it Popo's Cozy House. We paint, we make a mess, we cook curry, and the whole place smells of spices and love. She plays with the mended pink rabbit, which sits proudly on my sofa. David doesn't have a big, fancy condo, but he has his daughter. He has his mother. He has his integrity. As for me, I have my son back. I have my granddaughter, and I have myself. I learned a very hard lesson. Love should not mean giving up who you are. Love should not mean sacrificing your last piece of security for someone else's dream. True love is a safe harbor, not a storm you have to weather alone. I thought love was about holding on, no matter the cost. But sometimes the bravest act of love is to let go. To smile when you want to cry. To walk away to save the last shred of dignity. So that one day you can welcome them back into a home that is truly yours. The world moves very fast now. It tells us to want more, to be more, to buy more. But in all that noise, we can forget the simple things. A shared meal, a handmade gift, a quiet moment of understanding. A mother's love. I have my small, creaky flat. I have my friends in the park. I have my son and my granddaughter, who come to me not out of duty, but out of love. I lost a daughter-in-law. I lost a dream of a big, happy family under one roof. But I found something more valuable. I found that, in the end, love is the only thing that lasts. Love is the only thing that matters. Not the love that demands and takes, but the love that gives and forgives. And that, my dear friends, is a truth worth more than all the money in the world. If you liked this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.